Welcome to another Yaskawa webinar, this one going over Sigma7 software. Start things off, we'll go over today the installation, some required software, and the supported models for the Sigma7. Also connecting to the SERVOPACK. There are a few new options in version 7 on how you can connect to SERVOPACKS. The Parameters tab has had quite a few updates, as well as the monitors, and there are some new features we'll go over at the end here. First thing I want to go over is installation, so you can find this on our website at the link below, which I will post here in the chat window for those of you who don't have it yet. The current version is 7.22. We've been releasing minor updates pretty frequently, so if any of the features I go over today you're not seeing in your current version, try and going to our website and downloading the latest version. And also make sure to download from yaskawa.com to ensure support for all the SERVOPACKS we sell here in North America. If you download it from their European website or the Japanese website, you might get different SERVOPACK models supported. And also, just to note, there is a prerequisite of installing the Microsoft Access database engine. Along with the download files, there is a README of how to install that database engine, and if you try and run the software without it installed, it will give you an error message and prompt you on how to install that. The USB driver installation, for those of you who have used Sigma7 version 5, the driver for the USB port does not install automatically. If you already have that driver installed for Sigma7 version 5, you do not need to reinstall it, but if you do not have it installed, you will need to go to this location. An example here. The driver is actually contained within the install file folder this time. It does not go into your program files x86 as within Sigma7 version 5. And then for the rest of the installation process, you can see our Sigma7 plus USB driver YouTube video. It will be exactly the same minus the change in folder location for that driver. Currently, we support all released Sigma5 and Sigma7 models shown below. If you're having trouble connecting to any of these style amplifiers, again, try upgrading to the latest version of Sigma7. We have added support for a few new SERVOPACKS in the more recent releases. Just to note, Sigma2 is not supported here, so you will still need Sigma7 version 5 for support of Sigma2 and Sigma3 amplifiers. Alright, so the next section we'll go over how to connect to the SERVOPACK. We'll start off with your connection options. First, the standard is the USB, which we've supported in Sigma7 5 for a while. The new ones that we've added is support for Sigma7 over MECHATROLINK 3. This requires an MP3000 IEC series controller, and also that controller is running firmware version 3.3 or newer. And we also now support connection over EtherCAT. That does require the master to support Ethernet over EtherCAT, as well as a few other things which we'll go into later. Also, a big new feature is that all connection methods support connecting to multiple SERVOPACKS simultaneously, which is a thing that many of you who have used Sigma7 5 only being able to connect to one SERVOPACK at a time. So now we have support for multiple. USB connection, pretty straightforward. This is the standard. Use your Sigma7 cable, which will be the USB to USB mini. I've had a few people calling in with issues where they get intermittent connection issues, and just a reminder that we do recommend you use shielded USB cable, part number right there for one of those. This is also the only connection option for your analog pulse or indexer models of SERVOPACK. The MECHATROLINK connection, kind of the new one, so this is only available for Sigma5 and Sigma7 MECHATROLINK 3 SERVOPACKS. This will not be supported on MECHATROLINK 2. This does require a direct Ethernet connection to your MP3300 or 3200. Does not work over a wireless network. So to connect over MECHATROLINK, you scroll over to MECHATROLINK relay device. Once selected, you will need to click communication settings and either use your current IP address, or you can set an IP address through Sigma7. Need to choose the right network adapter. If you do set the IP address, you can back up your settings so that when Sigma7 is exited, it will revert back to your old IP address settings, which is kind of a handy feature. Once you've completed selecting your IP address, you'll hit set. And then the second thing you'll do is the relay device, which will be your MP3000 series IEC controller. You'll set that IP address. I always prefer doing a ping test just to make sure you are communicating. You'll get a communications ROK message reported back if that ping test is successful. And then the next thing you need to do is set the station address. So this is going to be your node number or your access reference for the SERVOPACKS connected. So in this example, I'm searching nodes 3 through 5. And then you hit search for SERVOPACKS. And I searched 3 through 5, so I got a 7W with 2 axes and my 7S at node number 5, found through that. EtherCAT connection, we have a really good app note with a link listed here to go over this in further detail, but just a brief synopsis. As I mentioned, the EtherCAT master must support Ethernet over EtherCAT, also being able to set the SERVOPACK IP address, and this application note uses Beckhoff as the example master. Currently, this is only supported on Sigma7 for the 100 and 200 volt models. It requires firmware 8.03 on the EtherCAT SERVOPACK, and for the 400 volt models, it requires firmware 7.08 or newer. This connection method, you will use the Ethernet connection, which is why the setting of the SERVOPACK IP address through the master must be supported. And there are 3 different styles of connection that you can go through here. So the first one is a direct connection. You have an embedded PC that's running your EtherCAT master and also running Sigma7, and in that case you just need a direct connection to the SERVOPACK over EtherCAT. You can also tunnel through an EtherCAT master, which, as shown here, you have Sigma7 on a separate PC, and you connect via Ethernet to your master, and then it tunnels through EtherCAT to connect to the SERVOPACK. And the last connection option is going through an EtherCAT switch or port terminal. Same idea as tunneling through the master, except for it is a separate switch or terminal. And just a reminder, the application note will go through all of these features in more detail. It's pretty thorough. So connecting to multiple SERVOPACKS, as you can see here on the left, there is an SGD7W and an SGD7S, so a single and a dual axis amplifier that I'm connected to. When using MECHATROLINK 3, the node numbers will actually appear, so you can see there's 0103, so it'll be my node number 3, and 0105, which will be node number 5. So it's kind of a handy way to know which axis is which. You have to use the same connection method to connect to the SERVOPACKS. You can't do 3 axes over MECHATROLINK and 1 axis over USB. It has to all be the same communication style. As well as now we have a new feature. Instead of saving individual SERVOPACK parameters, you can save a project file which will contain the parameters for all the SERVOPACKS in the project. So now instead of having for a 4-axis machine having 4 separate parameter files, you now have one project file, which contains the parameters for all of your SERVOPACKS, which is pretty handy. Also, if you're only connected to 2 axes and you want to add a third to your project, you can, down at the bottom left, has this plus button, and then you can click Go Online with SERVOPACK, search again in the top left, and hopefully when you search again you find that axis that you were looking to add, and then there'll be a checkbox next to it, so make sure to select the new SERVOPACK and hit Connect, and then it will be added to your project. So the menu, each SERVOPACK has its own separate menu, so you can be taking traces on multiple axes at once. Just a kind of a nice new feature. If you double click on the axis name, it'll bring you directly to the alarms tab. So it's a pretty useful feature, since a lot of the time you're using Sigma7 to do some debugging and troubleshooting. So for the dual axis, when you click on the menu, it'll bring up axis A and axis B. So that's how you select between those 2 different nodes. Also, if you click on this expansion button highlighted here in the kind of bottom right of the slide, it will expand the menu so you get a little better idea of all the items in there. Makes it a little easier to navigate. Next we'll go into the parameters, how to view multiple axes, their parameters at the same time, save individual parameter files. As we mentioned before, you can save an entire project, but there also is a way to export individual parameter files, a new parameter converter feature, as well as searching and filtering of the parameters. So once you're in the menu, the edit parameters under the basic functions menu is how you open up all of the parameters. So if you open up the menu and edit parameters on multiple axes, you will be able to view all of them at once. As you can see here, I have my dual axis 7W as well as my single axis 7S amplifier, viewing all the parameters at once. There's the ability to import parameters, so you can either import a .usrs, which is the Sigma7 parameter file, or the .usr file, which is the old Sigma7 parameter file. You can also export your parameters to, again, the USRS, so that'll be your individual SERVOPACK parameter file, or you can export as well to a CSV. There is a new parameter converter feature, so this will allow you to convert from a previous series Sigma drive, so Sigma5 to a Sigma7. It will update all the necessary parameters. This tool is located under the Other submenu. Steps to convert the parameter file is browse to the old .usr file. Click Save and select a file name for the parameters to be converted and upgraded to, and then select a SERVOPACK model for those parameters that you want it to convert, and hit Convert, and it will save the new .usr file with the updated parameters, as well as, if you click the checkbox, it will save a log file of all the changes that were made. There's a few new ways to filter parameters in the parameters menu. So quickly sorting in the top left, there is sorting by the different styles of gains, torque, position, speed, I/O signals. So it'll quickly get you from one section to the other. There is also a new searchable way to search parameters. So if you go to the name drop down, there's a little arrow icon, and if you click on that, it'll bring up a comparison, so you can do directly equals, not equals. My favorite is usually contains. So in this one, I'm looking for any parameter that relates to torque. So the parameter would contain torque. I hit apply, and then, as you can see, my parameter list was filtered to only show those parameters that contain torque in the name. And that's a pretty handy feature if you're looking for a specific parameter and don't remember the number. So next we'll go over some new monitor features. The monitor menu looks quite a bit different than it used to. So you've got your main operation section. So now you can monitor multiple SERVOPACKS at the same time, just as with the parameters menu. There's three main sections. You've got your operation menu, which will be just kind of the current operating status, or as I like to think of it, the non-Boolean status values of your SERVOPACK. Also the status features, so these are kind of all your true, false parameters, and as well as your I/O, your SERVOPACK inputs and outputs. Just to note, there are a few filters for these monitor sections. So for the operation tab, you have your control selection, so what parameters that apply to certain control modes, position, speed, torque, and any combination of such. You've got your IF drop-down, which allows you to select between common parameters or network-specific parameters, in this instance, MECHATROLINK. And then the item drop-down, which is the last one, allows you to select and deselect all the parameters. And just a note, this list, the item list, will change based upon what you have set for your control and IF filters. So if you aren't finding an item in the item drop-down menu, go back and check your filters to make sure you have all the parameters enabled to be searched. The status tab has a similar filter system. So you've got your control method, and then from that we'll select the different items that you can select from. So now moving on to new features. So there are quite a few new features in Sigma7. So we'll go through those, starting with system tuning, I/O signal allocation, alarm tracing, which is only supported on Sigma7 amplifiers, life monitor, product information, and some special features for FT style amplifiers. So system tuning, this is kind of a new menu. This is similar to your advanced adjustment feature under the tuning menu. So for those of you who are familiar with tuning, this is the advanced adjustment is kind of the last step in the tuning process. So for those of you who are not familiar with tuning, please check out our YouTube video. We have some great videos on how to go through the normal tuning process. And then this system tuning feature you could use at the end of your tuning process. So to get here, you open the system tuning under the tuning menu for each axis you want to get put into this menu. Again, like the normal tuning menu, it will force you to disable tuningless mode. A prompt will appear when you try and go into this menu if you are still in tuning mode, or tuningless mode, to kick you out of tuningless mode. You can adjust the axes either individually, or you can adjust all the axes equally, which I see is a pretty good feature for tuning a dual axis gantry system. So you're adjusting both the X and X prime axis parameters, tuning parameters at the same time. So to adjust equally, you'll click on that and it will bring up a menu. The first axis you check on will be considered your base axis. This is where you will make all of your parameter changes, and those parameter changes will be applied to the other axes. So I selected my base axis is axis A, and then selected my other two axes to follow there. And once I have it selected, I can hit start tuning, and then adjusting my axis A settings. All of those settings will be mirrored for the second axis A and axis B. So another new feature is I/O signal allocation. So this is kind of a few pages from SigmaWin version 5 rolled into one. So display list allows you to show your I/O signal allocations and allows you to change those allocations. Some of you might recognize this from the parameter setup wizard. The input tab allows you to just monitor the current status of all the inputs, and your output tab will allow you to either monitor or go into a forced output mode for testing and verification of those outputs. So alarm display and trace, again, this is available only through Sigma7 amplifiers. They have this feature. Just another note about the alarm tab, you can now reset your safety option cards alarm through here. There's no longer a separate window to clear safety related alarms, which is pretty handy. I'm just going to throw that in. So all the Sigma7 SERVOPACKS will take a trace of the core parameters immediately after an alarm. So it'll be torque reference, feedback speed, and reference speed will be the parameters traced. To get to that trace, you open up the alarm display. For the SERVOPACK, you want to see that trace on, and then you will select alarm history, kind of from that tab there, and then click on View Trace Waveform, and that will bring up the waveform that occurred right before the alarm was created. So it's a pretty handy feature for troubleshooting and debugging when you're not quite sure what happened to cause a SERVOPACK alarm. Another new feature is the Life Monitor feature. So monitors the usage of core components to estimate the lifetime of the SERVOPACK and of the servo motor. So there's the installation environment monitors. So you've got the SERVOPACK temperature monitor as well as the servo motor encoder temperature monitor. And if you look at it in this view, seeing 45 and 50% seems a little weird, considering it was pretty much a brand new motor, but really that is pretty good. So 0% is actually going to be your minimum operating environment, and 100% is your maximum operating environment. So you really never want to hit those numbers because that will actually cause the SERVOPACK or servo motor to fail. So being at 45 and 50% right in the middle of their operating environment, which is ideal. And then in the bottom you have your life prediction monitor, so all the components that typically lead to a SERVOPACK failing will be monitored for their usage over time. As you can see with this one, everything's still pretty new in the 99% of their life cycle. Also, there's a new feature to read all the product information. So it displays your model number, your manufacturing date, and your software versions. Remember before in the EtherCAT, you needed to have a certain EtherCAT firmware to be able to do SigmaWin over EtherCAT. So here is the tab that you would come to verify that you have the right software version on your SERVOPACK. Also allows you to export this information to a CSV file, which is pretty handy for keeping records of all the parts that you ship out. We also have support for FT SERVOPACKS built in with Sigma7. So currently we have released FT19, which is max track, FT79, which is the built-in indexer, and FT81, which is your harmonic drive support. So these models are not supported by default in SigmaWin. So what you'll need to do is come and look at these instructions here again in the install file for how to add support for these FT firmware SERVOPACKS. I'll go through it really quick. What you'll do is download these SigmaWin FT information files. Again, it's in that same install folder. You'll go through SigmaWin, go to supported models and the model information file manager tab. In the top right of that menu, you click add. You'll search for those parameter files that you downloaded from the Iskawa website. Click and open. And then you'll notice once that is imported, will require you to restart SigmaWin. So close and reopen, and you will have support for the new FT style SERVOPACK. that concludes the presentation. We'll take a look at questions here and answer those. So one question is, can we change the colors of the amp and motor to green when it's between 10% and 90%? In the, I'm assuming, option monitor maintenance. As far as I know, that is not a feature. Right now, you just have to open up the menu and see where your environment monitors are. Can the life monitors be viewed outside of Sigma7? Unfortunately, no, they cannot. You will need to connect with Sigma7 to be able to view those part lifetime monitors. Another question, is it possible to connect 2 drives to one PC using 2 USB cables? Yes, that is possible. You can connect to as many amplifiers as you have USB ports. You can also use USB splitters to connect to as many SERVOPACKS as you would like. Also wanted to note that there is another application note on how to connect to SERVOPACKS over MECHATROLINK 3, similar to the EtherCAT application note. I can post the link in the chat menu here for that as well. So far, that's all the questions we've had. I'll give it another minute to for any other questions that come in, but we got one more. For the life monitor, is the 99%, is that the life that is left, or is that the life that is used? So 99% would be life left. So they're 99% good, so when that gets down to 0 is when you would expect the part to fail. Got a question, what is the FT servo line? The FT servo line is a series of special firmwares released for the SERVOPACK. So as I mentioned, right now there are currently 3 released that include Max Track, which is a low following error model specifically designed for typically machine tool applications. A built-in indexer, which is the standard analog pulse SERVOPACK, but also has special features to do indexing capabilities, and then the harmonic drive actuator supports the harmonic drive series of direct drive servo motors. Question, any plans to make it easier to have multiple windows open? Not that I am aware of. Unfortunately, it just does become kind of a screen management issue when you're trying to open multiple windows for multiple SERVOPACKS, trying to fit them all on the same screens. It's a question, do we have support of the Profinet option card? I believe that is one that we do not have the parameter file for it by default, but similar to the FT SERVOPACKS, I think you can get the file and import that in for the model information to support that. Question, is there an overview for using the indexer with this new update? I think the indexer help file contains all the information necessary for it, but it should be the Sigma7 indexer will have be set up the same way as the Sigma5 indexer was. Another question, can we use harmonic drive motors? Can Yaskawa amplifiers support these? You will need to buy a specific model of harmonic drive. We only support the SHA actuators since they use our Yaskawa encoder protocol. Another question, are amplifiers specifically matched to motors, or is this part of the tuning process? This is actually more probably part of the sizing process that you would figure out before implementing anything with Sigma7. We do have a sizing software, Sigma Select, for help with selection of motors and amplifiers. Not seeing any new questions pop up, so for now I will be signing off. If you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to call 1-800-YASKAWA. Thank you and have a great day.